and you see these people who fight to get here, to fight to get citizenship here in the U.S. Ask them what they think of firearms. Get them up there, because they're the ones who will fight for it, because they come from countries where you can't have them.
Welcome to Gun Owners of America's State of the Second podcast. I'm Kailey.
And I'm John, and today we're here with Mike from CCW Safe. Mike, how are you today? Thank you for joining us in East Tennessee.
Good. Thank you for having me. It's great to be here.
So let's go ahead and we'll start with, what is CCW Safe and a little bit about your origin story. Tell us who you are, what you've done, things like that.
Yeah, so I'm Mike Darter. I'm the founder and CEO. CCW Safe was founded on a personal experience that I had as a police officer. I was in law enforcement for 20 years. During that time, I was involved in a shooting on a raid. Ended up killing 2 drug dealers, got sued in federal court. I won that case, but it took about 1.5 years to get through that case. Luckily, I was a member of the Fraternal Order of Police, so they covered everything. So my stress level during that time was super low from what it would be normally. Financing something like that, even at that time, probably would have been $200,000. Got to summary judgment, got kicked out at summary judgment, so we won the case. But years later, when I left law enforcement, I realized I don't have that anymore. I don't have the ability to have somebody fund a trial if that happened again. I had a small, I have 3 daughters. They were young at that time. So I was carrying and talked to my brother, Kyle Sweet, who is the general counsel, and called him one day and said, hey, I need some protection. And he was a former cop as well, turned attorney. And he said, I need the same thing. So he said, let me look around and see what I can find for us. And about a week later, he called me and said, man, there's really nothing out there that's going to give us the protection that we had as officers. The only thing that's out there is insurance, and that's not a great product for that. So he said, we need to do this. And that was in 2011. We started it 2012, built the infrastructure, and the rest is history on that. 2017, we were the first company in the industry to actually defend a murder one self-defense case, and that was the case of Stephen Maddox. That was in North Carolina. So it's been a big journey for us, and that's the backstory. So
now, so you guys are in all 50 states, correct?
Well, yes. We pulled out of Washington and New Jersey. So we got sued in Washington because they were trying to say we're an insurance company. We're not an insurance company. And what they were trying to say is that if we covered somebody in Washington, and the way CCW Safe works, we have a critical response team, which is probably the number one thing that sets us apart. But we have a critical response team of former homicide detectives. We have Don West, who defended the Zimmerman case. He's our national trial counsel, and he's probably the lead defense attorney in the country, most experienced, 40 years plus. And so, we have this team that goes and finds the attorney, hires the attorney, pays for the attorney, pays for investigators, pays for expert witnesses, and so forth. And so, in Washington, they were saying if somebody's found guilty, they have to pay us back. And so we said, no, we're not going to do that. So we pulled out of Washington. We're hopeful that maybe someday we'll be able to go back to the state of Washington, and then New Jersey is just the armpit of America. So, you know how that is. I mean, we're out of that. So we're in 48 states.
So you guys, your legal services, it's not insurance, like you said.
Right.
So when somebody makes a phone call to you guys, let's just say I was in a self-defense shooting, how does that scenario play out?
Okay. Yeah, it's a good question. We have a team. We have a 24-hour call center, and we have a team of about 12 people that are on a text. And as soon as that call comes through, everybody immediately gets texted. Now, the call goes to an attorney. We have 2 attorneys that cover call. And they're like doctors. They're on call 24 hours a day. So they take the call, and then they triage it, see, okay, what happened? Is this going to be a covered incident? A lot of times we have people that join after the fact. They have something happen and then they join, later and then call in. So, and then from there we go to work. If it's an actual shooting, a lot of times it's brandishing cases, which we cover. But if it is actual shooting, then that team immediately goes to work on the member, their status, where they're at, where they live, their family members, who to contact, and we determine if we need boots on the ground. We typically have boots on the ground that day or the next day. Boots on the ground are former homicide detectives who have worked cases like this. Don West generally starts with those two. They go and then they'll get with the member if they're in jail. Don will work on the legal side of vetting attorneys in that area. Who's the best attorney for that specific case? While Gary is working with the family or whoever the homicide detective is, working with the family on what the process is going to be. And then if they're out of jail, we get with our member and then, start working to get them an attorney as fast as we can.
So I have a question.
Yes.
You said that it was 2 attorneys that answer the phone.
Yes.
So does that mean that the minute you call in, the attorney-client privilege starts?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So it goes to a call center, and the call center is trained. They don't ask any questions. They just ask, is this an emergency? If it's a yes, they say hold, and then they patch it through to an attorney. So that goes to the attorney, and then immediately that starts the privilege. And then,
so from incident, theoretically,
yes.
Incident to talking with a lawyer is minutes.
Minutes, yeah. Sometimes it's on scene, where this has just happened. Sometimes before the police even arrive. They call the police, and we have kind of an outline that we give our members, the best practices. Always call the police first, call paramedics if, notify them at whatever you need, and then call us. Sometimes it's from jail, but most of the time it's on the scene or it's at a home where something has happened. So
now you mentioned something that's very interesting. A lot of your calls are brandishing cases, and you said you cover those. A lot of companies don't cover that. Why did you guys decide to cover brandishing?
Well, brandishing is interesting. It's like if you feel if you're threatened and you feel like you have to pull a firearm to defend yourself, you're the only person that can articulate that. And everybody's different. If somebody approaches you versus approaching us, it may be different. You may feel more threatened than us. So we look at the case, and as long as, matches the police report, what they're telling us matches their police report, we'll go ahead and find an attorney and cover it. Most of the time, those cases are very small amounts of money. Usually it's $5,000 to $10,000, so it's not that big of a deal. So we'll go ahead and cover it. And the only time we don't is like if somebody, makes a police report and it's totally different than what they tell us. But we still go ahead and hire the attorney. We get it going. And in those cases, we'll, just get with the member and say, hey, from this point on, you're on your own. You don't have to pay us back. We got you an attorney. If you want to keep this attorney, you can keep him. But, we're not covering it at that. But those are very rare. I mean, usually that doesn't happen a lot.
Yeah. So before the show, we were talking about some of the states that have a lot of your members in it, and one of them is being California. Mm-hmm. You guys do a lot of cases in California. What does that look like? Because California is very anti-gun.
Oh, very anti. Yeah, and we were talking about that before. Outside of L.A. and the Bay, California is actually a very conservative state, and I never thought that we would have that many members. I never thought they would be one of our top states, but it's very conservative outside of those areas. Those areas are just so massive, that you have to deal with that. We actually had a case this last year of a member in L.A., and we got a no file. They didn't file on him. and it was a actual shooting case, and it was in one of those counties that was not a great county. And, anytime we do have a call in California, it's kind of like a pucker factor because, it's like, okay, what are we going to be dealing with? But luckily, all of our cases that we've had there have been fine, even though they're in these areas where it might not be the best area to be. This last one was good because there was a video camera right where it happened. So that's kind of undisputable.
Now, how do you, as a company, combat, you're going in a case, that the district attorneys are judged on their win-loss records and how they move up. How do you combat, them throwing on miscellaneous charges like discharging a firearm in city limits or any other the ridiculous charges that they try to throw on top of it for illegal self-defense shooting?
Yeah. Well, and that's going to happen. I mean, that happens all the time. So that's up to the attorneys, and that would be a really good question for Don, in dealing with that. But that's where, and that's where Don comes in, and Jennifer Chance also being able to vet these attorneys and getting these attorneys for our members that are the best in that specific case, because all these cases are different. Every shooting is going to be different. It's going to have different factors, different scenarios. And so finding the right attorney for that specific case is very important. And that's why, we vet them. And Don hires them. And in the case of Stephen Maddox in North Carolina, he actually had one already in mind. He's like, oh man, I've already know a guy there. He's going to be great for this case. Well, the guy was like in Aruba for 2 weeks. Oh. So he ended up going in, spending some time with one firm, hired 2 attorneys, and it was the best decision ever for that specific case. They knew the judges, they knew all the landscape there. They were local. It was a very small town. It was Wilson, North Carolina. So it ended up being good. And that's one of the questions that comes up a lot is like, well, why can't I hire my own attorney? And you can hire your own attorney. If you want to, with our system, the way it works, if you have an attorney, give it to Don, let him vet the attorney. And if it's good, then we'll hire him. If you want to hire somebody else, that's fine. But we're going to recommend who we would hire. And really, I've been involved in a shooting, and I know that is not the right time for you to decide who is going to protect you legally. With everything that's going through your mind at that time, it's really not. That's best. When I had my shooting, I was in court weekly, probably for years at that time. I didn't really know who was going to be the best attorney for my case. So I kind of left that to the experts. And, if you do have someone who you have pre-picked, like happened in Wilson, they may be on vacation. So, they're not going to cut their vacation short to come back and, work a case for you.
So that's kind of what makes you guys different from other types of coverage is that most of them have a team of lawyers, or by state they have already hired on their team for that. So the lawyer may not be familiar with the county or far away. So you guys are going into the specific area and vetting somebody who would be fit better for the case than maybe somebody who would already be pre-picked, correct?
Right. Well, and that's why we feel is the best for that case. You don't want to bring somebody in who doesn't know the landscape of that county, or that district court.
Yeah, because if you're in that district court or in that county, you probably know the judges and you know who they're going to get and everything. So you know how to work the case.
Yeah, you have relationships with the district attorney's office, with the associates there, with the public defender system, with the judges, everything. And a lot of these, lists you look at. I mean, some of these lists that these other companies have are family law. Attorneys. That's just kind of a list of attorneys. Here's some attorneys to pick. We want to really make it a concierge service to where if you're involved in a shooting, it's the worst thing most traumatic thing you've probably ever been involved in. We want to take care of you. We want to take care of your family, and we don't want you to have to worry about anything. You know, so we want to bring in the experts to be able to get the best people for that case.
Now, do you guys just provide attorney stuff, or do you also provide counseling and things like that? We
provide counseling. We provide investigators. You know, a lot of these cases, an investigator, like I remember in the Maddox case, the investigator within the first few months was $45,000. You know, expert witnesses. A lot of times you're going to have 3 or 4 expert witnesses, and they may not even be called to trial, but you have to have them work the case. You're going to have counseling. What else is covered? We cover cleanup, biohazard cleanup. If you shoot somebody in your house, you know, you don't want to be dealing with that. Carpet removal, cleanup, everything. We cover all of that.
So obviously we've spent a lot of time talking about the criminal side of that.
Yes.
Do you all offer things if someone is sued criminally and civilly?
Yes. Yeah, we have civil protection as well. You don't normally see civil cases so you see them a lot with police because they're going after the city. That's who they're really going. Like in my case, he went after me punitively as well, but they're going after the city because they got deep pockets. So most people are judgment proof civilly. You know, most people don't have a few $1 million laying around, you know, in an account that they can just go get. I think we've only had one civil case, and it was a civil case that was very small, you know, like a $10,000, what they were seeking or something, and it wasn't on a shooting. That's another thing we cover, you know, not self-defense that is not gun-related, we cover as well.
So I know you've talked about the fact that you are not an insurance.
Right.
And that's a big deal because we're seeing states pop up saying that they want, you know, mandatory insurance for gun owners, which is kind of insane if you think about that. You know, what other right do you have to have an insurance policy in order to, you know, take part in?
Right.
But that's a conscious effort to not be insurance. Obviously, you said that Washington wanted to claim that you were insurance. Mm-hmm. What was the initial conversations to say, you know, we're not going to go the insurance route. We are going to choose to be an association. We're going to choose to be a different organization altogether.
Yeah, that's a good question. That was early on, very early on. And we knew, so Kyle, who's my brother, he's my stepbrother. I call him my brother. We've been brothers since we were in like first grade. So he was a police officer, and he's a trial attorney. He defended doctors and hospitals and dental systems and these, you know, catastrophic cases. And he knew right off that if an insurance companies typically bring in their own attorneys to protect the insurance company, not necessarily the policyholder. And I don't know if y'all dealt with insurance. I have, and it's a nightmare. So we knew right off, and you know, insurance cannot cover intentional acts. No state can insurance cover an intentional act. Any attorney we felt any attorney could easily argue pulling a trigger is an intentional act. So we wanted to stay away from that. We wanted to make it a membership service that we provided that for. Now, in 2017, we created our own captive insurance company, which covers CCW Safe. So that's another thing, we're the only company in the industry that actually has our own captive insurance company. So, you know, our members have member benefits, which include attorneys, expert witnesses, investigators, counseling, you know, other forms of benefits. And so we have our own captive insurance company that will cover the company itself once we pay those out. And we pay those out immediately. In every case we've had, our members don't get bills. They don't get invoices from the attorneys. They don't get anything. So we saw early on that could be an issue. And what, we've seen over the last, I think probably 4 or 5 years is this idea that, well, if somebody has an insurance policy for this and they're found guilty, that's not covered. They have to pay it back. So, we don't feel like that. And because of our history of being a member of the FOP and having that concierge service totally take care of you, that's what we wanted to be able to provide for our members.
We talked about the benefits of CCW Safe. Is it just those things you mentioned? Is there anything else that they get as a benefit of being a member?
Well, yeah, I mean, there's a huge benefit. Even anybody visiting our site, if you're a non-member, you can go to our site and you can get, each week we do reports. Sean Vincent and Don West. So Don West is their National Trial Counsel. Sean Vincent is a trial consultant. He works on a lot of these cases in the past with Don. He worked on the Zimmerman case. He's worked on a lot of our other cases. They do these studies on these high-profile cases, and they're usually like 4-week studies. So each week we'll have articles come out. We have videos come out on what to do, if you're involved in something, how to handle it, why this person went to prison for the rest of their life, and what not to do that. One of the best cases of that is the Ted Wafer case. I don't know if you're familiar with the Ted Wafer case. That was where he shot the girl on his front porch through the door. That was and that's on our site, and you can go through that and you can kind of see how to handle that. A couple years later, we actually had a member who sent us a letter, and they lived, pretty far out in the country, and they had a guy who was trying to get in their house, and he was going all around their house working doors, and the guy was looking at him through the door armed. And he said, he kept coming back to this Ted Wafer case. Okay, I've got to keep my cool because, it's in the middle of the night. This guy's acting crazy, high, trying to get in your house, all the doors, and you're looking at him through the windows. And he sent us a long letter and just wanted to say, hey, thank you for what you do. I didn't have to shoot, but it took 20 minutes for law enforcement to respond. And I had 20 minutes of this guy trying to get in my house. I mean, he's freaking out, but he remembered that case. So, benefits starting with just information on, laws. And, we typically, leave the laws to like different sites that have the different state laws. What's the law if you're visiting, traveling? But we have videos, we have articles, information, and then it steps up once you're a member. Then you have, coverage for any incident involving a self-defense incident, which occurs everything we talked about: attorneys, experts, investigators, hazmat cleanup, counseling, all that. And that's a huge part of it. In the Stephen Maddox case, if you're arrested on a shooting and he was charged with murder one. If you're charged, that case is going to probably be a 2-year case. In that case, he had an ankle bracelet the entire time. He could go to home and work. That was it. I remember one day he had a aunt, I believe, that died out of state. He wanted to go to the funeral, so we had to go to the judge, get permission for him to go to the funeral. We drove to the funeral, and the whole drive, every 30 seconds, his ankle bracelet was vibrating. And he was like, every 30 seconds, I was reminded I may be going to prison for the rest of my life. You have to keep, our members, we have to keep them healthy. We had workout plans for him. We had diet plans for him. We had constant contact with him, making sure to keep him moving forward. And he was awesome. He went in, he worked with the attorneys. He was in highlighting reports with the attorneys. The attorneys were like, wow, we've never had a defendant like this. And, they got real emotional after that case. They were like, we'll never have a case like this again. Like this, most of the time, defense attorneys are just trying to work out what the punishment is going to be. Very rarely do they have a case like that where this guy's totally innocent and he's being ramrodded, and every day, they're not giving up evidence and that, and you have to fight for everything. And they're like, we're never going to have a case like this again. So there's a lot of benefits that we get that go far beyond that. If you're involved in something, that's our job, to keep our members healthy mentally, emotionally, and physically.
Yeah, I want to applaud you for that. A lot of companies may just see you as a number or throw you out there, but to say that you're going as far as to give them workout plans, daily check-ins, making sure everything's good, that says a lot. And it kind of sounds like, from somebody who has experienced that, it sounds like you're bringing a lot of your experience into that to go, okay, this is what affected me. Now I need to make sure that all my customers don't have to go through the same thing.
Right. Yeah, it's a traumatic event. I mean, it's not, taking a life is not natural. And even as a cop, I mean, it affected me for years, and I was okay with it. I remember one time my dad went with me to FedEx, and we were going down to pick up a package or something, and we were going through like Southside Loco land and all these areas. And I was like, oh yeah, I got in a chase here one time, and was telling him, oh yeah, in this house. And then we came by, I said, Dad, this is right down here is where my shooting happened. And my dad said, do you ever think about those guys? And I was like, every day. I said, I wouldn't do anything different. I did what I had to do, but it's something that is a part of my story now. And whether I like it or not, it's something that you have to deal with, and everybody deals with it differently. And so that's a big part of it. You have to keep the mental and, the financial responsibility taken off somebody who is involved in a shooting, especially if they've taken a life. That's one thing, but also giving them all the other support is another thing. So, and it's huge. So
you said, you mentioned that it's not just firearms you cover for self-defense. So What is all covered under that self-defense? Is it hands, knives, feet, car,
tire tool? I mean, whatever you have.
There's a lot of companies that draw that line.
Yeah.
But so if we've seen, okay, this is a great example. A few years ago, we had massive riots in the street, and people blocking things, and people pulling people out of cars. So if I were to have used my vehicle, or somebody would have used their vehicle in self-defense of their life, they're covered.
Yeah, you're in a critical. Yeah, it has to be a self-defense incident. If you're defending yourself or someone else, and I saw the same thing. I saw that one, and I forgot where it was. I want to say it's in New York, where they basically mobbed that car and chased him forever, pulled the family out. I mean, at that point, you're in defense of your life and the life of your kids, your wife, or whoever else. So, yeah, that's not for us to decide. That's for the court to decide, and that's the way we look at things. We're going to always err on the side of our members, because I'm not the judge. We're the company that defends you, takes it to court. The court decides what that's going to be.
So, with CCW Safe, what are, outside of the products, what are kind of your core principles that kind of have guided you to this point and representing people in the way that you do, from the civil to the criminal and everything in between that you offer? Like, what are those core pieces that make you all different from others on the market?
Well, that's a great question, because I think we're the only company in the space that actually has core values listed on our site. And we did that very early on. We went through a process with everybody in the company, and we determined what our core values were. And it's dedication, commitment, experience, leadership, and caring. And that is what drives us daily. We have it. We just moved to a new office, but our old offices, we had it on the glass. We had frosted like stripes with our core values on there. In the case of Stephen Maddox, you'd have to go back and look on our YouTube, but you can look and see where, after that case, we actually didn't want to put him on camera. We wanted to basically protect him and not have him interview because he was getting calls all the time. And we wanted we wanted our experts to be interviewed and to kind of save him. But he was so, I got pictures of him the day they won cutting his ankle bracelet off on the courts of the courthouse, steps of the courthouse. I mean, the first thing he did, he went out and walked at the beach, walked in the ocean because he hadn't been able to do that. And so he wanted to, he's like, dude, no, I want to tell everybody. And we're like, whoa, wait, you need to think about this. And he made a decision. He goes, no, I want to do it. And we're like, okay, let's do it then. So he did interviews with news stories and stuff. And he actually called us and said, I want to fly in and I want to do videos on each one of your core values and where they came in the case. And he did that. And he came in, he said, this is where carrying came in. And at this point, at this point, 3 months in, this is where dedication came in. And it was really cool to be able to have one of our members come and say, and that was him coming to us. That was not us saying, hey, we got an idea where, we want to bring in. So that, those core values run our whole company and our whole existence and our service to our members.
That's fantastic.
And it's not just, even our affiliates, we've worked with people, some of our affiliates, Julie Golub, Jamie Caldwell. I mean, some of our affiliates are, Jeff Gonzalez comes up and does a lot of stuff for us. We have experts in virtually every realm. I mean, from the top down, from me, the founder and CEO down, everybody has experience in, legal, law enforcement, use of force. So that's very important to us, to keep that consistent.
That's awesome. So obviously a lot has changed from when you were in law enforcement.
Yeah.
And you're seeing more and more of that kind of happen as we've talked about the cases that you've defended. What would be something you want listeners to take away from when it comes to having to act as your own first responder?
I think the biggest thing is you need to be prepared. You need to be prepared the best way you can. And not saying, having a team is one thing, but not even membership. You need to know the laws, where you're at, where you travel, where you're going to. You need to be prepared in that sense. You need to be prepared of what's going to happen, how the criminal justice system works. And you need to be prepared. And that's one of the biggest things I think that we give to everyone for free, not even our members, everyone out there, is the information on these cases. You can look and see all these cases in the past of what happened and what went wrong and when it went wrong. Because it comes down, if you're in a shooting, there's going to be, the minute that gun goes off, there's going to be every second ticking forward and backward is going to be investigated. So, seeing these cases and seeing what happened where these people are now, they lost their freedom, that's huge. You have to know, you have to be prepared, and you have to not only what's going to happen after, but you have to be prepared for building up to that, de-escalating, all that stuff.
So I think we can all agree at the table, right, that the culture is anti-gun and becoming more anti-gun. And so we have to constantly fight in the defense of our rights. We have to constantly be active and ensuring that, Hollywood isn't the purveyor of gun culture. And in a world, in a society in which people honestly dislike the fact that your company has to exist, right? Mm-hmm. That someone using their firearm in self-defense is treated as a criminal, and they're not, treated innocent until proven guilty. In a kangaroo court kind of mentality where you're like, has all hope been lost? You've been able to show that it hasn't. So what would be your kind of encouraging word? What would be the thing that you want people to hear from this podcast? Because there's a lot of people that don't want to get any sort of coverage simply because they don't philosophically agree with it. What do you say to those people?
Well, I think that's something that we're seeing not only in gun culture. I mean, look at our whole society right now. And I think in terms of the politics are always going to be there. We need people like you guys to fight to make sure that these laws are representative of all the people. But I think we also have to remember that there are a lot of people out there anti-gun. There's a lot of people that are pro-gun. And that's what I think you have to remember. And you have to be, again, it goes back to being prepared, being able to, if you're going to carry a firearm, you have to do everything within your power, both mentally, physically, everything, to be prepared for that if you have to use that. And the way we've done it is we rely on our experts. We bring the best people in to be able to deal with that specific situation because they're all going to be different. It is very overwhelming sometimes with COVID, with trans, with guns, with everything you see in society. Everything is, you feel like a lot of times you do feel like you're fighting a losing battle. But I think the thing is you have to remember that, and I have to do this all the time. I have to remember put that stuff away. That's not going to affect me. I'm going to concentrate on what I'm going to concentrate on. I'm going to keep moving forward, stay as positive as I can, bring the best people in that I can. Just what, GOA is doing in the political realm, bringing the best people in and fighting for our existence, But I think there are a lot of people out there that are, have the same thoughts as this table. It's just hard to see with all the noise, and I think it's a lot of noise right now.
Well, I think the silent majority has a there's a reason why that term exists, and it's because for oftentimes, we're not the loud ones in the room, and the squeaky wheel gets the oil, right?
Yeah.
And I go back to what you said at the beginning. You felt confident because you had the police union essentially covering you, the Fraternal Order of Police. You had that coverage because you were a part of that system.
Right.
They're protecting their own, rightfully in your case, but it's incumbent upon us to find our group of people, whether it is an advocacy group that you are actively engaged in and a part of that is, moving the ball forward in something, or on the flip side, finding someone to join hands with on the coverage side of things, because you as an individual are responsible for you. Unless you are, in this group where you're able to shoulder that burden together. And so, it's important, I think, that people realize that getting coverage, whether it's CCW Safe or another organization, it isn't about I'm now causing an additional problem for us to fight.
Right.
It is, hey, they already have this for their groups, but I'm all by myself. I like my odds better with a group. I like my odds better knowing that I have someone that can help me. And you're not giving away your due process. You're not giving away your individual rights by joining a group like this. It's, in fact, the exact opposite.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you have to get involved. You have to get in the community. And we've always said, as far as our competitors, I think I can honestly say all of our competitors are going to do what they say they're going to do for you. You need to have coverage. If it's not us, find somebody that's going to fit you. I truly believe that they are going to do what they say they're going to do. But you have to have some kind of plan. You have to have something ready. Because if you're going to carry, you're carrying for a reason. You're carrying for the protection that it gives you if you need to use it. So you have to be prepared for that.
Well, Kailey brought up a good point with the kangaroo court and everything like that. I mean, the media is so quick to crucify before they get the full story. Mm-hmm. I mean, we saw this multiple times over the last couple of years. And it always comes down to who gets their story out first. Mm-hmm. What camera angle they decide to choose. And you're absolutely right. We have to combat a system that's trying to fight against us the whole time. And how we do that is we join together as a community and try to get people who are outside our own echo chamber to come in and start, preaching the good word of the Second Amendment.
Like you were saying, law-abiding citizens only make the news when it perceives to fit their narrative, right? And the narrative is a powerful thing. Thankfully, we do have a justice system in the United States that, while may not be perfect 100% of the time, I would guarantee it's better than most other countries. And we do have a constitution, and we do have these principles. It's incumbent upon us as people in the firearms community, people that may consider them part of that silent majority, to start changing the culture vocally and to start providing those education pieces. Because if you look at the text, history, and tradition of the Second Amendment, we win. But what we don't want to happen is for us to concede ground because we were too afraid to be vocal. We were too afraid to be involved in a part, or God forbid, we were too afraid of what could happen in court or what could happen if I carry that we never carry, and then we lose our lives or we lose our families' lives because, we were scared of that risk. And so I think that, carrying a firearm is a very personal decision. And once you make up your mind that you have the ability to defend and protect yourself, that your life is valuable enough to protect yourself and your family, the next scenario is, okay, well, what do I do if this actually happens? Because most people will play the worst case scenario, at least out in their mind one time, right? To assess that potential risk.
Yeah.
And it's a deterring factor.
You brought up a good point too, bringing people outside that area or outside, our community in. And we looked at that early on too. It's like, there are so many people who are on the fence, so many people out there who are on the fence and we saw in 2020, those people came off the fence. Now, they may not know what they're doing. They may have, and a lot of them probably have given up on it because they don't know what to do. And I think that's where education comes in. Education is the biggest thing in everything. You look at, worldwide, whatever problem there is, education is the only thing that has, positive stats on fixing something. So I think, that's always been our biggest kind of thing, is to educate the people. And we want to reach those people who are outside, or maybe sitting on the fence, who, that could maybe be put in a situation where, oh, well, yeah, I would protect my life if I had to, but a lot of those people, and there's a lot of people who are anti-gun that would carry to protect themselves, and we see it both sides. We see people who are pro-gun that don't take that action to protect themselves, to have a firearm. There's a lot of pro-gun people that will never have a gun in the house, and a lot of people who are not so pro-gun that would have a gun in the house to protect them. So I think education on way to help these people understand, the whole system, beginning with, the decision to make a firearm. It is a very personal choice, to the decision of, okay, I'm going to make that decision, and now I'm going to take action in case I have to use it.
Yeah, and I think, as a community, we're very good at rallying around each other. And I think we just need to take that same energy that we do to rally around and rally the troops up when the ATF attacks, or when there's attack. We need to be able to use that same energy to go outside of our little bubble or echo chamber and bring more people in and rally. And there's some people in our community who are really great at that.
Yeah.
But I think as a whole, as a community, we need to find a way to go, hey, there was 20 million new gun owners. How do we reach them? How do we get to them? They've made that decision. How do they take the next step to, join an organization like GOA or get signed up with you guys to protect themselves from legal liability and things like that, or legal liability is not the right word I want to use.
Legal protection,
legal fiscal money thing. I don't know.
Financial,
financial obligation. Yeah, there we go. That's exactly. But I think as a community, we need to find a way to kind of branch out and find those people and say, hey, we're glad you've joined us.
Yeah.
Now that you've joined us, it's time to join us in the fight to restore our rights to where we need to be, or to, teach them how to. I mean, there's a lot of people who are new to getting and carrying, and a lot of people are teaching people. A lot of people don't feel comfortable. For years I was teaching CCW classes. There's a lot of people who never felt comfortable carrying with a round in the chamber.
Right.
Or there's a lot of people who don't feel comfortable, appendix carrying, or some people are like, well, the gun's not comfortable. It doesn't feel right. There's a lot of things as a community that we can go in and go, hey, these are the things that we can do. Here's how I'm going to educate you. This is why we do it.
That's interesting, because I lead photo tours on wildlife also several times a year. And I meet a lot of people who are both anti-gun, pro-gun, but I've met a lot of people who, look, there's this one guy, I met Sid, and he became a citizen here. He went to med school here, became a citizen. He loves guns. Like he's like, and you see these people who fight to get here, to fight to get citizenship here in the U.S. Ask them what they think of firearms. Get them up there, because they're the ones who will fight for it, because they come from countries where you can't have them. And that's one of the things through education. I think that would be interesting to look at and have, because people don't know. People like our history. People don't know our history, and they don't really understand, how we got here and where we came from. And education on that is, again, I think that's huge. In 2020, we saw, you saw lines around the block in California, and gun sales, selling out in a day, and they didn't know what to do. So your point of, reaching those people and really bringing them into the community and making them feel safe. I remember when I got higher up in, when I quit carrying all the time. I mean, even going back to carrying all the time for me, who, I was a gang unit officer, my gun was out, I was clearing leather 20 times a night. It became a little uncomfortable. I had to get back into the training, get back into the consistency to get to the point to where I was like, okay, so I can see where somebody who had never been around a gun, they're going to be like, I don't even want to touch it, Well,
it's funny you bring up, immigrants and people come to this country. My grandparents are immigrants from Italy. They were there during the war. My grandfather finally opens up. He's talking about, how after the war, there was just everywhere. There was just guns because they were left, and explosives and munitions and things like that, and how, people were getting hurt afterwards, and how he was very anti-gun. And then once I got into it, my uncles are really into guns, which is weird because they grew up hearing the stories from my grandparents about Mussolini and about how they took away everything, and that made them want to get into guns. And now my grandfather, who is like very scared of guns because of his childhood experience,
Right.
he goes, "Hey, I think I want a gun." And they're like, "Okay, let's go. Let's start this." Because he saw the same thing that you see where, he saw, and it's a very powerful thing when you talk to somebody from that generation where he's like, "I'm not liking what's going on right now. This is scaring me." Somebody who lived through one of the most trying time in world history to come out and go, "I'm scared. This is scaring me. I don't like this." It says a lot.
Right. It does.
And I don't know how you see that again, like a lot of the, like you said, the immigrants coming to this country. There was a man I met many years ago who came over from Ukraine, very into guns. There's a lot of people who I've met who've come from, I was working at a gun range in Columbus, and if anybody knows about Columbus, Ohio, you got Ohio State, and you've got all the big medical centers that are there.
Yeah.
And a lot of them are immigrants, and they come over and they're like, "Yeah, I want to try this. I want to shoot guns. I want to learn about this." And it's really telling how a lot of people who come from countries that are very anti-gun now are very pro-gun because they've never had that freedom, and now they have that freedom.
Yeah.
And they want to exercise those freedoms.
Well, history repeats itself. And if these people know their history of their country, they're probably seeing that. We brought a family out we have a range outside of Oklahoma City, and we brought, Kyle took a family out that his kids play sports together, and they were very anti-gun, and took them out, showed them firearms, introduced them to them, had them shoot. By the end of like 3 hours, the daughter, who was very, anti-gun, she wanted her own AR at that point. So she was like, "Wow, this is awesome." People see how to control it, understand that it's not something, it's a tool. It's not something that's going to go off on its own. And they're, safety, gun safety, they understand that, learn that. It's a huge deal. I think 24 is going to be another crazy year, and hopefully maybe the way I am hoping that it might be another opportunity to, bring some of those people outside, because I think it's 24 and 25 are going to be kind of crazy. So,
yeah. Well, the best thing that you can do to encourage someone to become a gun owner is to build an on-ramp for them.
Yes.
And take them to the range, have a conversation about it, acknowledge what's going on, whether that's in your neighborhood or in your state, and acknowledge where they're at in that, and start figuring out, well, how do I reach them? Is it a conversation? Is it taking them to the range? Is it, accompanying them to the gun store so that they can ask you questions? Because maybe they would be intimidated to ask the person behind the counter.
Sure.
It's, referring them to, someone on YouTube or Rumble for them to, that you think that they would really enjoy watching, that would do some gun reviews or whatever that is. Your friends better than anyone else is going to know your friends. And so if they are anti-gun, or maybe they're just apathetic, they really aren't one way or another, you can make that conscious decision to introduce them in a safe way, to build that on-ramp for them to be a part of the Second Amendment community, and show them the value that they have in their ability to protect themselves and their family.
Couldn't agree more. And we saw that very recently, or at the airing of this not so recently, with our women's event. A We built an on-ramp. We had a lot of new female shooters who were at that event. A lot of them, all of them became GOA members while we were there.
That's awesome.
So it was 200 something women.
Wow.
Something like
That's
that.
awesome.
It was fantastic. And you know, I want to thank you guys for attending that event. We had your team was out there talking to people. They said they got some great signups from that.
Nice.
But it's good to, you know, like you said, create the on-ramp, and we were able to do that through our women's event to get all these new, a lot of them who we talked to it was either their first time or a friend brought them with them or they heard about it through another person. And many of them, even from some of the vendors on the range, were like they were very green and new to this. So it was a great experience, not only from being on the range, but from the vendor side. They were very great experience, and to see all these new people not only become GOA members, but also start on that on ramp to becoming, you know, firearms advocates and into the firearms. It was very refreshing to see.
Yeah, it's cool to see people who are green too, because you probably know this as a trainer. You know, you get people who they don't have any bad habits yet. So you get people who come in. We had a little girl. She graduated with my daughter this last year at OU. She brought her out to the range. She's like 90 pounds soaking wet, you know, and she didn't really want to have anything to do with it. But we got her on the range. Justin was working with her, and her first 5 shots on target, bam, 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 and she was like, you could physically see the change, you know, and like, so people who are green that don't have any bad habits, if they get a good trainer, you know, it's awesome to see that immediate change. It's like I used to coach judo. I had a judo school for years, and I coached little kids. And when you see a kid get confidence on the mat immediately, it's like, that's cool. And you see that, you know, with people who haven't been around shooting.
I love new shooters, and I love new shooters, and I like women who come into the class because they have no preconceived notions, and they are just fantastic to train with. I love it because they will listen to you, they will talk to you, they will ask questions, and I'm not saying that I hate the men, but it's like the ego sometimes kick in, and it's like, I know better. You know, one of my favorite things to do is I do a lot of youth riflery training, and it was a lot of instructor training, and we would get these guys coming over from England and stuff to do summer camps, and they have this like, oh, guns are bad, this and that, and I go, listen, you're coming over here to teach this, so we gotta teach you, get you wrapped up in this. By the 3rd shot, they're like, this is the coolest thing ever. How do we do more of this? I'm like, okay, well, let's start off slow. We'll do this. I think after I was a riflery instructor at a camp. After camp was over, I took some of the guys that were from England out, and I said, hey, you guys want to go to the range? And they're like, yeah, we shot these, they call them tutus. They go, we shot these tutus. And I'm like, come on, let's go shoot some real stuff. So I pulled out an AR and stuff. They're like, oh, this is evil and bad. I'm like, really? Let's try this. And like shoot it. And they're like, this is the most fun I've ever had. I'm like, yes. There's like, is this like every day in America? I'm like, well, listen.
Depends on how much money you make. Ammo can be expensive.
But that's the thing. They have this preconceived notion like there's a gun behind every blade of grass in America, which is not untrue, but also...
I mean, we can always improve.
Yes.
Those numbers can always improve.
But yeah, it's just cool to see, especially like you said, with youth, teaching them how to shoot. It's just fantastic watching them go from like a group about the size of a paper plate down to the size of a dime in a matter of months, and watching them light up and see how they can improve. And sometimes they take a step back, but you're there encouraging them and getting them to go, hey, you know, my favorite thing to always do is I'd sit there and they shoot and they'd have a bad target, and I'd go, what'd you do wrong? Well, you know, I lifted my head up after I fired every shot. I'm like, yeah, you know better than that. And what else did you do? Well, I wasn't holding my breath. I'm like, okay, what else did you do? Oh, I jerked the trigger. Okay, so how do we fix these things? okay, well, I won't jerk the trigger. I'll do this, my breathing properly, and I won't pop my head up. I go, cool. Now let's go do that. And they'd be so excited. They'd go, look, I did exactly what you said, and it worked out fantastic. Yeah. It's just great to see the joy on their face afterwards, especially since they got a little medal for getting their certificate. They were like, look at me, I got this little medal. I'm like, yes, you did.
My gosh.
We definitely need more of that.
Yes. I really feel like we've seen the attack on Hunter's education recently. I really think we need to get back into the youth shooting sports. I think there needs to be a big investment back into it. We see a lot of camps and stuff going away from it for insurance reasons. You know, their insurance won't cover, or the parents are so anti-gun that they don't want to send their kids there. But to teach that in an environment like a summer camp or like a YMCA camp or something like that, you know, you're teaching it in a controlled environment. Now they have respect for it. Now they're learning it, and that's how we pass on this, like what GOA stands for, the text, history, and tradition. We're passing on this tradition of, you know, marksmanship, and I can't believe we got away from that, and I feel like we need to get back into, you know, the marksmanship aspect of getting kids in. We don't all need to be like super tactical things. We just like, let's start very slowly and work our way up. So,
yeah. And I tell a lot of parents, you know, personally, I mean, your kids are living in a time where they have the highest probability to come across a gun. They better know how to handle it, or to recognize it, you know, to know what to do with it. And just putting blinders on is not the answer. So, yeah, I totally agree with you. I think youth hunting programs are great. You know, they need to have an introduction. There needs to be more programs out there for introduction for kids. So, and we used to do like daddy-daughter shooting competitions, deals where we'd, you know, have dinners and then do shooting. And my daughters, they started shooting around 10, and they loved it. They still love it. They love going out to the range. So, yeah, it's something that we definitely got to get back to.
That's awesome.
It's going to be hard, but
it's worth it.
For sure.
It is something that is very worth it. Speaking of getting involved, this summer, GOA is having our inaugural Gun Owners Advocacy and Leadership Summit, which is GOA's convention. You guys have a booth at the event. It is free to all GOA members. So if you're not a member, make sure that you click the link in the description and fix that immediately. But it's going to be a great time in Knoxville, Tennessee. We're going to have an entire exhibition hall with top manufacturers and innovators in the firearms community. We're going to have some amazing speakers and panels for people to learn all of the things that they need to know. It's going to be an awesome time. Again, August 17th and 18th, Knoxville, Tennessee. Claim your ticket online if you haven't, and be sure to drop by their booth.
So are you excited for it?
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Yeah. We're going to have a good team out there.
Yeah, your guys' booth is right there by the door as soon as you get in. So, you know, I being that this is our inaugural, what made you guys decide to want to come to the event and kind of hang out with us?
Well, you know, we haven't done that many events in a while. And I think what you guys are doing is great. You've had tremendous growth. And I think it's we look at everything from our affiliates to everything we do as being mutual beneficial for everybody involved. And I'm just really looking forward to, you know, having that booth there and, you know, building on, you know, a relationship with you guys. So I think everybody's excited about it. And we're looking forward to it. Knoxville's beautiful.
Yes.
I love it. It's I'm super excited for the convention. I'm super excited that we're right now in Tennessee.
Yeah.
So we can talk about it while we're here. Knoxville's a beautiful city. And, you know, are you an OU fan?
I am an OU fan.
Yeah.
I played rugby at OU, so
You're going to be right near UT, so. Well,
it's easy in and out too, Knoxville.
Oh, yeah.
This airport reminded me of Oklahoma City. So yeah, if you can make it come out, it's going to be an awesome event.
I think so too.
Awesome. Well, if you have any questions about goals, go to goals.gunowners.org. Thank you for joining. Where can everyone find you guys?
Thanks for having me. CCW Safe. Go check it out. And like I said, there's a lot of free information for people. And like I said, just think about, if you ever have to use your firearm. And we have a good industry. So like I said before, see what's right for you, that fit, but you do need to be prepared in case you have to use it.
It's ccwsafe.com.
ccwsafe.com, yes.
Cool. Well, on that note, thanks for watching today. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe. Hit the little bell for notification on YouTube. Leave a 5-star review on all podcasting apps. Go check their website out. Go to goals.gunowners.org and have a great rest of your day.